Your innie has a massive penis. Which therefore means you do too, I guess.
That's the cold open. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lumen. My name is Connor D. I'm here with Dustin W. and Kellen S.
Did you have to think about Kellen's name? You paused a little too long.
I was trying to, I don't know. I'm
trying to think about the last name. I was like, who am I? Kellen S. Yeah, that's my last name. So
S.
I think I'm dying.
Kellen Scout.
Kellen Scout.
Yeah, this is the Severance episode, so there's no bells and whistles except for Kellen's lights, the waffle party lights. Those are pretty cool. Yeah, all right.
Yay!
I got it on Aurora setting right now.
Ooh, nice.
All right, Severance.
Hello, my name is Mark S. And I have, of my own free accord, elected to undergo the procedure known as severance. I give consent to sever my memories between my work life and my personal life. I acknowledge that once the procedure is complete, I will be unable to access my personal memories whilst on the severed floor.
Say gratitude.
Nor will I retain work memories.
Hey!
Sorry, when I return home at the end of the day. I make these statements freely.
Hi, kids. What's for dinner?
We warned you.
About the greeting? You were kidding.
We hate it. How many reasons did we come up with?
8.
Good morning.
Hi, Mr. Milchek.
Mark, could I have a word?
Petey is no longer with this company.
I'm sorry, Mark. You guys were one of my favorite office friendships.
What happened?
We'd love to tell you, but unfortunately non-disclosure policy forbids.
I confer upon you the advanced role of department chief. Congratulations. A handshake is available upon request.
Thank you. May I have a handshake? Do I know you?
My name's Petey. I'm from work.
So, we're friends?
I'm your best friend. Nothing is what they say. I used to think it would take a monster to put someone in a place like that office. Especially if the person was himself. If you want to know what's going on down there, you'll find the beginning of a very long answer.
What's happening?
What is it we actually do here?
It's important your eyes be kind. Do you know how to make your eyes kind?
Severance is a series, 2 seasons so far on Apple TV Plus, created and run by Dan Erickson, starring Adam Scott, Zach Cherry, Britt Lower, Tremel Tillman, Jen Tulloch, Dickon Lockman, Michael Chernus, John Turturro, Christopher Walken, Patricia Arquette, and Sarah Bach. Notable executive producers are Patricia Arquette and Adam Scott and Ben Stiller. So this, if you've clicked on the episode, you know what Severance is. This is that show where people are at work and things are weird. And that's the description if you haven't watched it, because that's all you know that it is. Oh, it's that guy from Parks and Rec. The top of his head is off in the poster. He's always in a suit. It's about work somehow, but things are strange. In reality, the show is about much more than that. It's about a world in which, God damn it, shut the fuck up.
Your innie has control of his anger.
The procedure called severance has been invented by this company, Lumen, wherein the employees that are working on the severed floor have a chip in their head that is activated when they go to work, where they do not remember anything about their lives outside of work while they're at work. And when they leave work, they don't remember anything about the office or the nature of their work as they leave. And so they've completely compartmentalized their personal life and their work life. And so things happen as a result of this, because the innies, the workers, as they're referred to, start to kind of wonder slowly, like what's up with this company? What's the nature of this company? And the Audis kind of slowly start to wonder that as well, but they can't communicate with each other. It's not possible. It's forbidden. And stuff happens, and there's a lot of intrigue, and it's super fucking interesting. So I finished the second season a couple days ago. I think, Kellen, you probably watched it before all of us, and I think Dustin plowed ahead before I did, and then I binged it myself in like a couple weeks. I was talking about another show recently where I'd said, it gave me like really good, like Lost vibes, where I felt like there was a mystery worth pursuing, and then there were answers to those things, but there were also more mysteries set up, and closure with continuing questions, not just endless questions and tension, actual, progression and resolution. I think Dustin said that Severance has been doing the same for him, and I would agree. It doesn't make me feel the way Lost made me feel, but it's doing that thing for sure. It has a completely different feel to it that's really unique to it, that I can't even compare it to another show. I see now why people have been saying for a long time that this show is great. I feel horrible for the people who watched it in real time and had to wait so long between seasons, because when I finished the first season finale, I was like, holy shit. And I had to immediately, start watching. And how lucky was I? And I think the third season's been confirmed. And we probably have 2 years to wait.
No. Ben Stiller very, very pointedly said you won't have to wait as long for season 3 as you did for 2. I mean, the writer strike and actor strike, I think, was a big part of that.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think Apple's faith in it is so much higher now that there's no way they're going to sit on it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, good. I wonder how many. I mean, I would watch 6 seasons of this show. I won't want to overstay its welcome, but I mean, this show has jumped to, the top grouping of my list of shows now. Shows that are currently airing that I think are exceptional. Yeah, Severance is great. Dustin.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said. It's great. It has that Lost vibe, but I agree that it doesn't make me feel like the way Lost did. And I chalk that up to me being older and less susceptible to like the hype now. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm more cynical or whatever, but like back in those Lost days, like, we started when we were in high school, and we were like of that age where we were like devouring, forums and theories. And there, I forget the name of the website. There's like a whole website that I'd go to every week where people would have like screen grabs and be like, what is this?
Yeah, it was named after the flight, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe Oceanic something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
There was also Lostpedia.
Lostpedia was a big one. Yeah. Like I just remember like devouring every week and like talking with all my friends and everybody like, what's happening? What is this? What do these hieroglyphics mean? And like, this guy says there's a theory about Jack going to ancient Egypt and whatever it was. And it's like, okay. Yeah, man. So I think that's just like product of its time and of our age at that time. Now, I don't have that same feeling. Like I'm not, on the message boards, but I've certainly seen my fair share of like, YouTube shorts or like Instagram reels or whatever, where they're like, what could this mean? And I watch them. That's cool. But I don't like get obsessed about it. But the show, like I could see folks who are in, high school right now, probably being really obsessed with this show. Although I do think like some of the, workplace metaphor here probably gets lost on them. Like I was immediately struck by, how often it does feel like this at work. Or at least like this kind of thing is asked of you. Like, just don't think about all the other things. Don't think about life. And that mentality is unhealthy and, toxic to separate yourself that way. And so this was like a weird statement on that. And that's what immediately drew me to it. And then of course the mysteries like were secondary, but like, to your point, the mysteries could easily go the Lost route where it's just like stack them up, mystery on top of mystery on top of mystery with no movement forward in explaining anything. And I'm not even the type of person that would say this or Lost or whatever has to explain every little thing. Some of it is just world building and, it's fine to leave it a little bit vague or whatever, but there are things that have to be explained. There are things that you bring up that are too tantalizing or too important to just let it be, oh, it's a little mysterious how this might work. It has to be explained. And so Severance is doing a really good job so far of explaining as it goes. Because the other thing that Lost did that was its own detriment was like they continually promised, like, we will explain it. We will explain it. We will explain it. And so they're just pushing everything down to the end. And so by the time the show ends, like there's a mountain of things that have been pushed. There's no way you could possibly make a satisfying ending. And I think this is doing the more proper job where, yeah, there's some things, but we're going to answer them as we go. We'll push a little bit, withhold it for a little bit, then we'll give it to you. And so, there's this episode in season 2, we'll talk about it more when we get into spoilers, that is a lot of backstory for, there's a couple episodes that are a lot of backstory, and it's questions that we've had. And they could easily have gone the Lost route and just not had those episodes and made it continually vague forever. But having that allows you to attach yourself to it emotionally. And I think that that's what this show is doing right. And maybe they've learned from Lost's mistakes. At least I hope so. The cast is phenomenal. And I initially, I remember like when I first started, I was like, okay, so you got Adam Scott, you got John Turturro, great. Christopher Walken hadn't showed up in the first episode yet. And so it's like, oh, I don't know what that is. Patricia Arquette's there and all that, but like, there's a bunch of like new faces. And I remember thinking like how kind of just normal people they look. Mm-hmm. And I was initially like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in something like this, but it turned out to be like the best thing ever, that, they are as just normal as they are. I don't know, the cast is just great. And so, yeah, I don't know, man, the writing's great. And, I have no big complaints. So I'm on board. I hope they can keep it going and stick the landing one day.
I came across a term, people are calling it a mystery box show. I didn't know if that was I don't know if that's an official genre or whatever, but the Lost mystery box kind of thing.
It's like a J.J. Abrams
and I term. Fully agree with it. It gives me Lost vibes in the best way. I agree that I also don't see, I don't see them not sticking the landing. I don't think this show is done on Discovery. I don't think that they haven't had a plan the whole time. And that was the issue with Lost. It was so popular, they had to push out season after season without a plan. And so each season just kind of if it did anything, it tied together maybe one big thread from that season, but it introduced so much other crap that, why did the statue have 4 toes?
Polar bears. Yeah.
And all this other stuff that I don't see Severance doing that. I think the way that it presents its mysteries are much smaller and much more nuanced. Yeah. I actually think a lot of the mystery comes from how opaque it is rather than how much it shows you.
Yeah.
Whereas you have a cast of 40 whatever people, most, a core 10 or something like that, traipsing around an island and finding something every episode to just keep you dangling along. Severance basically gives you giant mysteries, the big ones, while also showing you some other stuff that might be okay to not answer the way that Dustin was just saying. there are some things that are nagging at me. I don't think it's spoiler material, but like via context clues, you know, Mark using American currency, you know that you're in some differently autonomous state that isn't a current American state. It's called PE, which probably has Egan in there in some capacity or something like that. But they use American currency. So like, you know, you could run with thoughts on what could come to this world where things are kind of retro and like, but modern. They're on cell phones, but he's, you know, there's stuff done with a camcorder and like all this stuff that like keeps you confused. And I wonder if it's mostly just to keep you unrooted and not be able to make guesses very safely.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I'm like, I might have to give up on knowing exactly what the wider world is all about, because the show is not really about that. I don't think the story of Severance is concerned about what the wider United States thinks of this region. My theories, you know, range from something along the lines of like an alternate timeline post Soviet era or something like that, where just borders have been drawn in different ways. And this sort of religious cult following, I guess it's pretty culty, is like has its own country or something. So anyway, that gets into spoiler territories. My opinion on the show, it's just really, really good. I think it started out as something different than it ended in the second season, but I think that was always the goal. I think they keep their cast super tight and small. You can tell that this is a big world, but it's always winter. There's always very few people around, and I think it just means it's focused.
The setting is so important, and my mind goes to like Breaking Bad, where more than a year passes in that show, but we never see Christmas. You know, you never see any of that passing. It's just like it just is, and this kind of has that same feel where like the setting is just the setting, and it's always going to be that way. Like I don't anticipate the season where Mark is, you know, doing you know, summertime Mark, and he's, you know, sipping a cold one on the beach somewhere.
He's spring breaking and Daytona.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I enjoy the mystery of stuff like that, like the currency and whatever. But even something as I don't know, tantalizing as why does Lumen have goats, to me is like, if I never knew, I probably wouldn't be too upset about it, because it's just a weird cult.
I was going to specifically mention the goats. Like that's something I'd be okay with not knowing exactly why. It's just, this is a strange and multifaceted company. And, and before you saw the goats, you maybe thought you had some idea of what they did. And then you walk in, and you're like, what the fuck? There's goats.
Yeah, they
here?
just do everything. Yeah. Like my brain would have just said, I don't know, they use them for milk and dairy and whatever, or they're sacrifices because it's a weird religious cult. Like it doesn't matter. Like it wouldn't have bothered me, I don't think. Whereas something like Lost would have presented that way more, like grandiose than this. Like they just like stumbled on it and then like backed out of the room. Like, oh, whoops. Lost was like, why a polar bear?
Not ready yet.
Yeah, right, yeah. Lost was literally like, you know, hey, we're on a deserted island with a warm climate, and here's a polar bear. Whoop, we shot the polar bear. Dharma initiative, and everything's like so heightened all the time.
Yeah. Well, they made it very pointed that we want you to see this and we want you to like ponder on it.
Sure.
And after the fact, hindsight being 2020, you're like, they had no intention. And
yeah, I
don't know how it's different other than its subtleties and nuance and stuff, but I just don't feel like they're doing the same kind of thing.
Well, even if we just stick to the goats versus the polar bears, the thing is, the goats, like that makes enough sense with religious cults and whatever, you know, weird sort of demonic things might be happening there. That makes sense to me. But like a polar bear in Hawaii doesn't make sense. And so like it's inherently like anachronistic is not the word, but you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't fit its setting. But the goats do fit. Like, it's not a stretch. Now, if they were like, if they stumbled upon a velociraptor, then you're like, I'm going to need you to explain that one. But a goat, okay, it's a goat.
Yeah.
The guy down the street has goats. I don't know what you mean. What do you want from me?
Not to turn it into Lost bashing the episode, but I think a lot of my ill will towards it, like while watching the show, I was super duper into it. I started fading the last couple seasons. And what you were saying before, Dustin, is like when we were approaching the end of that show, I could feel my hype crashing against my, like, every episode that passes and nothing is answered. Like, it felt mean that they weren't answering anything in the last couple episodes.
Agreed.
And the more you go, I have no faith that they're going to do anything in the last episode that makes me satisfied. And it crashed and burned. And I think what turned me against them the most is that they started saying, like for your polar bears thing, they're like, well, the Dharma's initiative did research there, so they're doing animal research. It's like they started doing half answers and saying, why'd you question it so much? Just kind of like Anyway, I just felt disrespected by that show, and I feel like this show expects more of its audience.
Well, I'll also point out that one of the differences is that Lost made a mystery of its characters. And so, like, they were revealing characters as things went along, but then they would always have a new mystery associated with that character. And that kept you at like an arm's distance from all of these characters. Now, at first, that wasn't a problem, but as time went on, it became a problem. And because you started to feel like you didn't actually know what was true, like you had been given something unreliable. And Severance doesn't do that. Like, its characters are its characters. There is no mystery to them. Like, even Milchek, who, has like this strange trajectory where you're not quite sure how he's going to land by the end of the season. Even Milchek has, like, I know that character. I'm sure there are things that I don't know about him, but they're not going to be weird, like, contradictions of character. Whereas like when you're like, Sawyer's name isn't really Sawyer, but is okay. Well, now I don't even know that the character is who I thought he was. So it's whatever. Or like, Walt, is he Jesus? And you're like, I don't know. You're like, I don't know what.
Well, so, and also anything that we do get surprised by about a character would usually, is not the fault of the innie, that's actually used as a very important plot point at the end of season 2 with the Glasgow Protocol or whatever. So like, it's not that the character's lying to you, it's that the characters don't even know about themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
because it's not themselves, and that's kind of the inherent thing in the show.
Yeah. It's as the characters learn about each other, so do we, but it never feels like we're being misled. And Lost misled us. There were so many times where they were like, Rousseau and the daughter and the thing, and you're like, I don't know. Oh, I'm over here. Oh no, it's over here. And it just felt like you were being pulled in 8 directions for every character. Locke, is this actually the smoke monster or is it Locke? And you're like, I just don't like. There's no grounding even of the characters. And that's a problem. And also, a character's name isn't the smoke monster. For crying out loud. Like, that's a terrible thing to write on a piece of paper. Sorry.
Yeah, I think too that like between the network demand of, even in the days of Lost where like network was coming up and was becoming more like prestige, like that's still a network demand of a certain amount of episodes on a certain schedule at a certain turnaround. And
long seasons
with certain standards and certain like,
it's a great point.
Right. And so like, other than the show being perpetuated by ABC essentially saying we're never going to end this, and the creators being like, well, we'll leave if you don't end it, and then being like, no, you won't, we'll just keep it going. And they're like, well, maybe we should be in charge, so like all that creates for bad drama. But also I just think that 20 years later, either I don't want to say filmmakers have gotten better at subtlety, because I'm sure it's true, but it's not like there was none of that in the years prior. The audience, maybe our tastes have evolved to accept and crave subtlety in ways that maybe it didn't before. I mean, remember, Apple TV Plus is a subscription platform. It's hey, if you want to watch this, come watch it. And network is like, we want every single person possible to watch this show. It has to hit the 4 quadrants. We have to be able to sell soap in between it. So it can't be too weird or too offensive or too, subversive. Yeah. And so I think that that's, a function of all of those things for sure.
You cannot spend 7 minutes just watching Milchick dance.
Yeah. I don't know why our, ever-changing technology and progress and communications and stuff has resulted in my opinions of movies going down so much as a whole, but my opinions on television, like, I'm more impressed and more engrossed by television these days than that. And I think the niche streaming factor of it does allow for that type of thing. Like, we're not governed by the least common denominator, like you're saying.
Right. That's what network TV and films have in common, is their audience is as broad as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I think is the difference, and I think this is important, but not like crucial, like it has to be this way, but I do think this is an important distinction. We always champion the writer director of a film, that those folks tend to have a vision in mind. And so when they write their film and then they direct it, it comes out feeling a little more focused or a little more cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
TV feels a little bit more like that. Like the showrunner has some sort of something in mind. And yes, there are other writers and other directors that come in, but that showrunner themselves is the person that's kind of guiding the ship. So it can feel a little more focused. But to that end, there's also the benefit, and I do think this is a benefit, of having a writer's room where you can toss out a bad idea and get feedback on it instantly. Whereas when you're writing a feature, you don't have that unless you have a writing partner or whatever. Like you toss out all of these ideas and there's no one there to tell you whether they work or not. And so then you sell it, it's made, and then you find out based on the audience whether it worked. And that's such it's a scary proposition. It's so much safer and more conducive to good stories to have a writer's room to fall back on. Like I remember, like the show I know most about is Breaking Bad. So I'm going to mention it again. That there's like a moment in the last season where Vince Gilligan had tossed out this idea that that they would have Walt Jr. like become a killer himself or something. And like he tossed this out and everyone was like, no, don't do that, Vince. And he's like, oh, okay. All right.
He admitted this?
Yeah. He was like, he literally was like, he was talking about the power of his writing staff. Like they're so good at reining my impulses in. And there was something, I can't remember who it was. But it was something like Vince had written where I think it was Walt maybe, who had somebody tied up and was like removing one part of their body every day until they gave up information, like chopping off a finger or like a toe, until there was just like a stump left. And the writing staff was like, and he was like, Vince, is like, I don't know. I just thought that they would be, just like, a stump sitting there. And the writing staff was like, Vince, you can't go there. And he's like, okay, all right.
How early is this in Walt's story? Because then you lose him in the way you're not supposed to until like...
I think it was towards the end, but it's still like they were like, you can't do that, man. And he's like, okay, all right, I got you. And like, but there's such a freedom in throwing something out and letting somebody go, that's too far, or that doesn't fit tonally, or whatever. And it helps keep you focused. And so the combination of a good showrunner with a clear vision and the writer's room who will rein you in, I think is what makes the difference. Because that, and like, for whatever reason, I think television, streaming and whatnot, they do tend to trust their creators a little more than films, where it's almost like, and maybe it's just a byproduct of like the IP driven market that we're in, but it's like, yeah, just tell the story, whatever. I don't care what you think. Like, just say whatever. What are the Ninja Turtles doing right now? And like, it doesn't matter what they're feeling. It just matters like, how many toys you can sell or whatever. And so like, I think TV is still that last bastion of like character driven stories instead of, market driven stories or even plot driven stories. So yeah, I don't know, but it is interesting. And I've noticed that, but Hooper, your point stands. I think Lost would have been a very different show had it been 10 episodes a season and the seasons took, a year and a half to make or 2 years to make. It would have been a very different show. But as it is, comparing it to Severance is a little bit apples to oranges. It feels the same, but they were under very different guidelines when they made Lost than these guys are.
I think too, I remember them saying like that one of the networks they pitched it to was HBO, I think, before it got to ABC.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that alone would have made it a really different show. I mean, not just for content and stuff, but like for like, okay, cool. Like people pay for this. So like we can take our time. We don't have to put these out every year. We can skip a year and do whatever the fuck we want. Like it's not a big deal. And like, it would have been a better show just for that.
Lost would still be running like Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Lost came out in 2003, right? The first season?
4.
Yeah. Okay. So I was about to say like, well, the climate and culture of HBO shows has also changed. But I actually think, did you guys ever watch Rome? It came out in 2005.
I never watched Rome. No.
So Rome, granted, like there's Sopranos, I think was started before that, right?
Yeah, Sopranos was late 90s, 99.
But like, I feel like Rome is kind of like the onset of the new HBO prestige drama. Granted, it didn't swing as high as like, Game of Thrones when that finally came around. But like, I think if it was on a network alongside, like Lost went to HBO and is on a network alongside Rome or something, it inherently would be more like that episodic model.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that was a 12 episode season. So it wasn't down to like the 8 to 10 that we're in these days.
I think Severance, I love how many episodes it is. If it was too much, then you undoubtedly end up with filler. And if it's too little, then you're not revealing enough each go around. And so I think it hits the right mark.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect amount. I think 8 to 10 episodes is just hour long. That's a good model for most shows these days. And I think too that like the way, speaking back to like, the climate that enables these shows to be made, I'm still even with all the stuff we know about it, like, oh, it's TV, so it's more niche streaming services, not IP, not market, not the box office market, anything like that. You still wonder, like, if you're Apple, like you already know that this service is like a loss leader for your service. So you're not too concerned with like money or financial or like subscribers, but you're probably thinking like, well, what you're pitching to us sounds like something people would check out and possibly subscribe to us for. Like, I think that the only currency with streaming, if you are not Disney, is, and this is where I think Apple is smart, and maybe this is why I hear so much critically well about their shows compared to other networks, per capita, is that because it's a loss leader, like they are not sitting there going like, how can we make this make more money? Like David Zaslav does or Disney does. I feel like they're saying like, okay, it's not going to make money. So our currency is differentiation. It's uniqueness. It is, here's the shows that we have on Apple, and they're pretty unlike what you've got on other streaming services. And that itself maybe is what leads them to go, this show's weird as shit. Let's do it. Sure. I don't know.
It does make me question, like, loss leaders for Peacock and Jesus, what are the other ones that are tied? Like Amazon and things like that. That makes sense because it's not their whole bread and butter. But like Apple, they're losing a lot of money on it, and it's not driving people to buy their hardware. So I don't really understand what they're in it for. So
me neither.
It feels really weird to be like, I got no respect for like the corporatism and the greed that is behind like the Apple brand and also, you know, tons of things about what making those materials causes around the world. Anyway, I'm not a huge fan, but like it's really weird that they garner this like goodwill for me for how quality their programming is on a service that's losing money, and I just don't understand what drives them. Like, is there some guy that holds sway within a company who's also like, I got big respect for TV? like
yeah, I don't know,
and they just can't let it go.
Yeah.
I really don't know. Like we've talked about this ad nauseum on the show, like just what motivates these different streamers. Because like it can't be the actual money. Like it makes sense. Like, yeah, like if Apple's a loss leader for devices, I don't see how having good shows or just shows period does that. Other than them just keeping up with the Joneses and trying to get, you know, awards prestige and thereby have their name said on in award show broadcasts a lot. Oh, this show's on Apple TV Plus. People go, oh, Apple, yeah, phones, yeah. Like it's just a big like psychological game. But Disney is that too. Like Disney doesn't have to make money on its own. It's a loss leader for everything else they do. Like it drives toys. It like you don't have to do anything. You could give Disney Plus away for free, and it would still probably generate revenue for the company somehow. The same way that movies does. The whole thing feeds itself. I don't know.
The only thing that I can think is exactly what y'all are saying, but you have to think about like, so if we go back to the early days of streaming when maybe it was, you know, mostly just Netflix or like Hulu doing, next day releases from, you know, network shows. Then all of a sudden, like everybody jumped in, but it wasn't because those other companies were profitable. We now know they weren't. So it's not like people saw this business model making money hand over fist and they were saying, we want in. Instead, the only thing that could possibly have motivated that decision was PR. It was, well, we want our name said. We want our name to be
people are talking about
in the running. And so I don't even think it matters. Like I don't think there's a bean counter sitting at Apple who's going, because Severance was good, we can equate that to, 12 million iPhone purchases.
Right.
No one, I don't think anyone's doing that. Instead, I think what's happening is somebody somewhere is being very vague and saying, well, surely it just means something that our name is being said on the Emmys and on morning shows where they talk about, did you see the last episode of Severance?
And articles.
And articles and clickticles and whatever those things are called. And like all those weird...
I don't know about $1 billion of phantom gains. That's kind of...
But it's weird because like the whole... I've marveled for decades now about how advertising is so strange to me, that it's such a valuable thing. The eyeballs are so valuable that they're worth millions of dollars to companies. Like, how could they possibly like read that as a certain amount of conversions and do a cost benefit analysis on it? So, but if in that same vein, eyeballs are the most, attention being the most valuable commodity there is, having your name wherever people are doing things, watching TV, watching commercials elsewhere, seeing ads on YouTube for the show, like having shows means you can advertise something other than just your phones again. And you can get your name out there more, but in a way that doesn't annoy people as much because it's not the same advertisement they saw. This is an advertisement for Severance. Something that they might like and enjoy, and everything else is like, gravy. It's icing on the cake. Like, oh, then if you pay for the service, oh, great, but they've already got what they wanted because their brand is in your mind. And even though their brand being in my mind is not costing me anything or giving them anything, somehow that's worth something to them. I still don't understand that, but
I don't either.
That apparently is the game, because that's been the history of television for like 100 years, is products in people's brains.
Yeah, right.
If it results in, cheap access to good shows, then I feel like I'm winning for now. It's the proliferation of just okay shows is annoying. And long-term, bad for artistic taste and for, just people, I think, on a larger level.
Sure.
But without it, shows like Severance never existed. It would have gotten made as some bullshit half-assed version of itself as a movie. And we'd be talking about how much potential it had and how shitty the execution was.
They'd make it 3 hours and I'd say it's too long after I binge an entire season,
Yes, accurate.
I'd be like, I'm not sitting down to whatever.
Yeah.
5
Watching
hours
a 3-hour
later.
movie. Yeah.
I'm not watching a 3-hour movie, but I will watch 10 hours of a season.
What if we made it 7.5 hours?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's like that meme. Do you want to eat 12 cheese sticks? No. Well, what if I deep fry them and give you marinara sauce? And it's like, oh yeah, I'd love that.
I had a sick day today. Dustin, I don't know if I told you. I don't think you were in here. I'm like a little bit delirious right now. I had like a fever last night. But anyway, so I took a sick day today. And I laid on the couch and I watched like half a season of The Righteous Gemstones. And it's so funny to me because I'm just like, if this had been a movie that was 5.5 hours long, I'd be so annoyed.
I would have
right
hated
now.
it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, word.
Yeah, I don't even know where to kind of begin with spoilers, but
let's start at the end.
Okay.
Why not?
What do you guys think? How do you think the next season goes? How do you think? I mean,
I don't know, man.
Him leaving. I think there was people who were like really, he's leaving Gemma behind, But like to me, it's like, he got her out. Like he got, that was his mission, was getting her out, and now he needs to figure out how to, because for him, it's like you step into the stairwell and you're basically dead. Like that's it for you.
Mm-hmm.
He won't exist anymore. And so I think I saw a thing where Adam Scott said, I don't think they're thinking more than 10 seconds at a time ahead.
Yeah.
Just every little bit that they're running is a bit where they're still alive and they still have agency.
Yeah.
And when you think about it that way, it's like, oh, well, yeah. So I read a big Reddit thread, like, well, like how long could they stay down there inside Lumen? Like, how could they go on strike basically? How would that work? And
well, they're not even needed as workers anymore.
They're not needed as workers anymore, but Lumen couldn't, the argument was made, like Lumen couldn't just like abandon them. Like they'd have to, and people are like, I don't know, like they seem like they get covertly killed. It's like not that many people disappearing at once. Like they would have to ensure their safety and somehow figure out a way to like meet their demands. And they're like, well, what would they eat? And it's like, well, they could eat the goats. They could eat stuff in the vending machines. Maybe there's other things down there. Like, and so it was just this whole big discussion of like, what would this season even be? Like, I think someone said, I think it was kind of weird that they didn't go to like Miss Cobell and be like, is there a way we can like make one of these birthing suites where like the severed people could like go to live? Like,
I agree with what Adam Scott says. They're not thinking about anything. They're essentially like they're lab rats. They know they're about to die. We just have to survive as long as we can, and if that just means running another minute, like that's all we can do.
Yep.
I think we're forgetting that overtime protocol or whatever that's called still exists. So activating it from inside Lumen and then leaving Lumen is a possibility. And as long as they can ensure that it doesn't get, turned off. And I don't know how you would do that, but that's a possibility. I don't know that I would buy that the next season would take place entirely inside Lumen. And so at some point, in order to see both sides of Mark, which we have to, he has to leave.
Yeah.
But then that means that Lumen has to allow him to leave. Now, how does that work? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it could turn into something where Mark is also contained and they kind of interrogate him and stuff. So like Mark could still be in the Lumen compound or something like that.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I just because of what he knows and stuff and they're not going to let him go.
One of the things that I like about it is like, the way that this season ended, it could go anywhere. I mean, they could do anything. They can make up anything at this point, and it would be believable. I think, to me, the more interesting thing, like moving forward, is what happens to Lumen. I'm interested in what happens to Mark, and I'm interested in what happens to all these characters, but I'm interested in what happens to Lumen. There's been a lot of things said about Lumen, and obviously they're in this area that, you know, feels cultish and whatnot, and it's very difficult for cult leaders to be overthrown. It requires the cult members to recognize what the cult leader is, and I don't know that that's feasible at this point. But to Kellen's point earlier about the wider world, if all of this were to actually break and the wider world got a hold of it, the pressure on Lumen to change or do something different or be dissolved or what have you would be real, and it would almost reverse things if Lumen were instead of they're the overlords, if they're the underdogs. So are we headed there? I don't think right now, but I could see that happening at some point. But I don't know. It's interesting because obviously like Cobell's still out there. And so the question is, how does she factor into this? And is she, I'd like to point out that the season 2 opening titles have Cobell sort of, looming over everything, like watching it in this book, right? This season gave no indication that she was doing any kind of.
So that could just be because the major revelation about her was that she created it, the Severance protocol.
It could be, but it also it makes me
it was
feel
inside
like
her head, right? Like it was something like there was a big hole in her head in the opening sequence, and I think the characters were inside it or something.
Maybe. I thought it was a book. I can't remember.
Well, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. But regardless, it felt like she was like overseeing things. So to have her kind of come out on top could be a thing. But in order for her to do that, she's got to overthrow the Egans, which she could do if she helps Mark get, what Lumen's doing out there. Maybe the Egans do get overthrown and she's supplanted as the true heir of Kier, or whatever. But like, I don't know. It's also interesting because the same sort of thing can be asked about Helly, because her Helena's father, I forget his name, comes to Jamie, whatever, comes to her and says like, I used to see that Kier's spirit in Helena, but I see it in you. There's clearly like this thought that she may take over for Helena. Like he may want her more than he wants Helena.
Yeah.
And so I think roles are about to flip somehow. And I don't know how that's going to work, but for the first 2 seasons, it is clear that the one that's actually in charge, Mark Scout or Mark S, is Mark Scout. Mark Scout is making the decisions. Mark Scout is the one that's asking something very intense of Mark S. And I think that role may reverse. And it may be Mark S who takes control now. And I think that's the only thing that I can glean is like, I think that may be how that works out practically, I don't know. Logically, how does that work? I don't know. But it feels to me like Mark S is about to be the one that's calling the shots.
I wonder if reintegration is something they're going to explore for other characters. Like eventually, if that's part of how you resolve the show, is like one of the things that would happen being the characters being reintegrated. And that's part of how the severed people get to live on, as you unsever people. But what does that do with like Gemma and Helly and
would Helly's integration? Well, they wouldn't integrate Helly back into Helena if they had the power.
Yeah,
unless she wanted to, in which you could see her quickly changing is if she had a chance to talk to her, Annie, and she was like, "Hey, your dad hates you," she'd probably be like, "Yeah, I know." Like, no, he really hates you.
Yeah.
Like, I think you shouldn't listen to him anymore. Kind of a hate.
Earlier, I was like, I don't think they'll focus on the wider world or the implications of this in the wider world. But like, now I'm like, oh wait, but literally, Gemma is free.
Yeah.
So like, the very first thing you would do would be seeking out authorities, and if Egan is literally like overseer of this entire area, then it might be something about like corrupt regime or something like that. But
somebody that I work with said they didn't think that Gemma was free, that she spent an awful long time like yelling for Mark, and it would have been more than enough time for somebody to catch her. And I'm like, but what a terrible non-ending. Like we always talk about how with sequels and the next episode is essentially a sequel. You have to yes and it. Yeah, you can't just like no. Then it's like, oh well, then everything we just watched was for nothing.
Yeah, Newton, what's his face are dead, and now we're on a prison planet.
Yes, exactly. So I don't think they'll do that. So I do think she's free, which means she's going to go somewhere. Now, it may very well be that she goes somewhere and causes a scene, and a lot of eyes are now on the Egans and Lumen. But it could also be that she does for Mark what he did for her and says, I've got to rescue him from his innie.
I think that's part of it.
And she's going to go to Devon, and she's going to go to Cobell. And
I think
say,
Devon and Cobell are in the parking lot. Like, I think they're waiting for her to come out of the stairwell. That would clearly be part of the plan, would be to pick them up.
I also think from the beginning, I got weird vibes about Ricken, and I don't think he's who he says he is.
Really?
Yeah. I really don't. And for me, the nail in the coffin was, do you remember there's the episode? Now, this could be taken one of two ways, but there's one episode where he's at home and Devon comes home and he's talking to
the interpreter
James,
of the board.
Yeah. And
Natalie.
she's in his home, and you could take it one of two ways. He's genuinely like thrilled that somebody's taking an interest, and obviously she has ulterior motives, but he is just too dumb to recognize that. That's absolutely possible. But it is also possible that he's a lot smarter than he lets on. And all of this was something that there's something else going on. I've just always gotten a weird sense from him. And I did see something like I after the first season, I saw something where people were thinking he was related to the goats, because this is how dumb theories go. They're like, he's related to the goats because he told the story of himself he says something like, I was climbing a mountain face.
Goats climb.
Yeah, and he was like, they were like, oh, he's actually really good at climbing up mountain faces or something. And and everyone's like, he's a goat. He's one of the goats. The goats are becoming humans. And I'm like, you think that the goats become humans and then marry the innie's siblings? This is what you think? But I do think that I have a sneaking suspicion there's more to him than meets the eye.
Yeah. So that brings me to a question.
But he's not a goat.
What are your biggest mysteries? What's the first thing that springs to your mind right now that you want answered?
I want to know what the board is.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The board's not the biggest one for me. The biggest one is reintegration. I want to know how this works and where this is going to end up. Now, obviously, like, that's not really a mystery in as much as it just chronologically hasn't been revealed yet. But I think there's got to be more drama to that. And it's not going to be as simple. Like, we saw how hard it was on what's his face in season 1. And yeah, they've made it safer or easier or better or what have you. Yeah. But I don't like, Mark's not out of the woods with that yet.
Right.
And so it's not a mystery per se, but it is something that I think moving forward, I'm eager to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I watched, basically starting with the second season, I would flip through like recap things on YouTube that would like try to dive, basically the modern version of the message board that Dustin was talking about for Lost. Yeah. And like some of it's like, oh brother, you're really reaching. And then some of it is just like, I honestly enjoy the ones that are most like, look at this little Easter egg or this smart little thing they put in the background. Like that's the kind of stuff I appreciate. But like there is one thing about like the board. Like it seems like it's most people's theory is that the board is the somehow like preserved at like personalities of the prior Egans or something like that. But it makes you wonder like, well, that has to be some sort of technology and procedure. How can it go, stretch back to these historic figures? But also like the show really is not interested in explaining the technology or the how. Like them staring at numbers and getting feelings and bundling them up and stuff like that. And those feelings correspond to the 7 humors, the 7 humors.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's this weird cult based on pseudoscience, but the pseudoscience is true. So why can't there be? So like I'm basically trying to like world build their technology and magic system, so to say, to like think about what the board might be. You never hear their voice. It's all through a earpiece in a person who is hired to be the voice for that. And it's like, what would they be wanting to have a perfect like host for, like in Gemma and all this stuff? It's like, so is Jane Egan looking to be the host body for all of the prior Egan personalities? And is Helena wanting to usurp him and be that person? I have a lot of questions and I don't have answers, and none of this is succinct like the way that these YouTube people are, but I'm sure you guys have thought of similar things.
Well, the thing that I've thought with regard to that is there's basically, maybe there's more than 2, but I think there's 2 most likely options for the board. I think either so if you have somebody that you're not hearing and you're not seeing, the reason that a filmmaker would do that would be because either it's actually somebody that we do know and we do see and hear. So either we now have to go back through our catalog of characters and say, which of these characters is the board? Is it Ricken, right? Is there something there? Then the other thought
that does sound like a message board title. Ricken is the board.
Ricken is the board.
Because of the limited cast, that does mean that your suspects are so low.
There's very few. It's Ricken, it's Christopher Walken, it's whatever, but or his Lord Denethor
Fields.
But it could be any of these things. But you're right. It's a very small. It's John Turturro's dog. He's the board. It could be any of these people. Or the other reason a filmmaker would do this is because it's an abstract concept, like Kellen's talking about. It's something that we can't see or hear. We couldn't meet them. She is somehow. Natalie, you said Natalie is somehow feeling these answers in the way that they feel the numbers, and it's an abstracted concept, so that's why we're not seeing it.
She started crying or something. Like, do you remember? Like she was having emotional distress from the process of like. Yeah, that was weird.
So we saw 2 or 3 times John Turturro go out to a payphone. And he makes some very cryptic calls at that payphone. I don't have a good idea of what that might be. But I know, we know he had that big trunk with names and addresses. He was keeping track. There's more to Irving than meets the eye. And there's more to Christopher Walken than meets the eye. Like Bert is something more than he's letting on. And so it sounds like what I'm doing is exactly what I said Severance isn't doing, that Lost was. Like the characters are mysteries, but Lost was misleading. This is just withholding character information. That's the difference. And so there's questions I have specifically with regards to Irving and Bert and Ricken that I think need to be answered moving forward. Now, James Egan is also a big question mark. He clearly wants something. There's some reason for Gemma doing what she's doing. And there's also some reason that it had to be Gemma. And I don't know that we have any of these answers yet. So I'm curious about all of that, but yeah, I think what the board is trying to do, who they are and what they're trying to do is the key mystery.
Yeah, there's something to do with heredity and like blood. You know, they did a blood drive and obviously got Gemma and Mark like pinged as some sort of
match.
You know, we found them kind of thing. And so like that's the interesting thing is that the show, you know, if you heard the quick synopsis that Connor started out with, you would think that it would be like, ooh, a techie kind of show, but like it's just magic, but shown in a fashion that feels familiar to us as like a tech device kind of society.
Yeah.
They're on computers, but they don't do or look like or respond the way that our computers do. He's on a cell phone. I don't think I've seen a branded thing yet, but like, but why is there an old camcorder? So like technology is kind of one of the mystery box elements, but the parts that like are matter to the story is essentially magic.
Well, they're on those phones because this is an Apple show, so they're going to be on iPhones.
Oh, were they on iPhones?
I believe they are. I believe they're.
I don't recall.
I don't think there's a logo, but I think it's clearly an iPhone.
Okay, that's so funny. So like Apple's selling their devices to people in a cult country that probably would be like under sanction in the modern like world stage.
Don't worry about it.
Don't think about these things.
So again, like maybe that's why I shouldn't be thinking about technology because there's magic at play.
Sure.
Well, like you said, it just keeps you nice and displaced and thinking of it as an alternate world and not so much as like, what if this, you know, like, oh, like if they have this, then they must have Skype and they must have Zoom and they must have, you know, you get too much into like, well, if they have this one thing we have this other thing. And it's like, just don't worry about it. They have clothes, they have cars, you know, it's houses, they go to dinner parties, there's babies, but you know, but we don't know for sure what year it is. Or like, like you said, what even country they're in, you know?
What if John Turturro is a spy from outside of PE, whatever this area is?
He could be.
He's an undercover guy. They made a very big point to show Drummond going into his house and seeing what he knows. Going through his stuff.
He also was painting that elevator, and there's a reason that he would have seen that elevator.
Yeah. One of my other big questions is, what does ODM? Which one is the one that prints 3D prints stuff?
O&D.
O&D. Sorry. What are they doing? What is that for?
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, they manage all the art in the building, but then there's that secret room in the back. What is that doing? Yeah.
Well, they're also like making like common objects out of like plasticine, like, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's really, really, really weird. Why is that house that is in that big atrium, like the historic house where Dylan went and saw? Did it cut away before an orgy, or was it just orgy-esque in its depiction?
You're talking about the waffle party?
Yeah.
He leaves.
He leaves. I think the implication was it is sexual. Like the reward for the job well done is sexual.
But with people with masks on, that give me nightmares. So
correct.
That's another mystery. Who the hell are those people?
Well, you've got severed people just there for doing band stuff.
That's true.
That was honestly my big like bugged thing from that thing. Like until Helly like addressed them and says like they're gonna turn us all off.
Yeah,
I was like, are these people hired and they're like, we're gonna send you to this?
Are they on a field trip?
Well, and are they all severed or not? Because like you would think that process is kind of expensive or something. But there's like 100 people in there.
Yeah. Well,
and they all like kept doing stuff while watching their boss like get barricaded in a room. I did not understand the lack of autonomy in those people. And then suddenly they all had it.
I also think it's funny that like they go home and they're like, man, I wish I could play an instrument. And at work, they're a super proficient trombonist. Right. And they just have no idea.
I think it's a tromboner. Damn it.
Like they never even cut to like a shot of somebody on a trumpet going like, the fuck's going on over there?
Yeah. Like should we help that guy?
It's completely. Yeah.
oh, they just hit him in the head with an oboe.
It's very well done. I want to know so much more about every character, you know. I want to know more about Miss Wong. You know, I'm really interested in Seth Milchick. I think that he's one of those characters where I wonder, like, okay, eventually he's surely he's going to turn at some point. You know,
he's clearly the character that the creators had no plan for and then loved the actor, and now they're having to figure out what to do with him. Like, to me, that's 100% what that is, and they should be thinking about what to do with him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did always have an arc in mind for him, but it reads to me like this guy's too popular and we have to give him something.
I mean, just based on his dress alone in the outdoor the Ortbo episode. So we were saying, like, why is Irving, the Audi Irving, having dreams and seeing that, like, the elevator?
Yeah.
Annie Irving was also the one that had the dream and saw Dread or whatever. Not Dread. What was the humor? The creepy monster lady sitting at a computer. Yep. Whoa.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he saw woe in his dream. Annie saw woe in a dream. So, like, is there something to that he's the one that's able to have, like, sight? Yep.
He's Jesus. There's definitely a big question about him. Like, I don't think Dylan has much more mystery. Like, he just is what it is. But I like that about him. Yeah, or Mark. Yeah. But, like, I still think there's turns to be made for Helly. There's turns to be made for Milchick. I think there's turns to be made for Cobell. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. This is an aside. This is, like, my biggest complaint of Severance. I don't like Patricia Arquette in the role. Yeah. And I think it would have been better served with a different actress. But having said that, I get what they're going for. Okay, great. But I do think there's more turns ahead, and I don't think that they will relieve her of her villain duties.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you, but I'm kind of not at the same time, because I feel like there's either reason for it, for her delivery and depiction of the character, or we'll find something. But basically, like, the reason I agree with you is that her line deliveries are the only thing in the show that has caused, like, unintentional laughter from me and my girlfriend when we watch it. Like, there was the one where I think she first meets up with them with Mark Scout and his sister on the road or whatever, and some of her deliveries were so over the top and ridiculous that, like Becca, she just started laughing. She's like, why did they go with that take? Yeah. And but then when you think about it, like why does Milchick behave the way that he does? Like, why are the people that have been adherents to this, like, cult for as long as they are, like, have such weird cadences and ways of speaking? What kind of shot a hole in that was that, like, the people in what was the cold ass town she went to, her hometown, when she went there, nobody there talked like her, not even her crazy aunt. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just,
a whole town of people that talked like that would be hilarious and so off-putting at the same time.
Yeah. I also felt bad. Like, I laughed out loud when she got into town. The first thing she sees is a guy huffing ether in a bag. Yeah. And, like, passing out in a like rotted out bus. And I was like, vibes. This is a great place.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
If it weren't for all the snow, I'd think that she was in fucking Alabama.
She was brushing her teeth for too long for it to be Alabama.
Oh,
shots fired.
Oh, she was brushing her teeth at all.
I think the only way she can deliver lines at this point is hammy and, like, obviously villainous.
Yeah.
So to, like, try to give her some level of, like, empathy and, like, I'm on the side of the angels now. I'm like, well, why are you still talking like that? Yeah. She's like, well, Mark. I'm like, well, stop I don't know.
Well, and Dustin, it's a very specific decision they're making when the way that they frame and do trucking and stuff like that. And it's strange.
Yes.
So there's got to be something to it. But like, I also think James is a creep. And then I think it was an intentional laugh. You think like his reaction to his plan crumbling in front of him is going to be some big grandiose thing. And he just goes, fuck.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with like how they are supposed to carry themselves as like people.
Sure.
As in management. Yeah.
Well, I do think that's the point of the Miss Wong characters. We're seeing the early stages of what this is doing to a young person.
Because Cobell went through the same fellowship or whatever that Miss Wong did. So maybe just being with the company for so long changes the way you. It could just be no more than like a subtle like choice of like these career people turn into drones. Like they turn into weird people.
You do have to wonder though, like if Miss Wong, like she can't, obviously she's not severed. So obviously she doesn't go home to her mother and father and siblings and say, how was your work day today, sweetie? Like that wasn't like, obviously she's like living Lumen forever. And that's the only reason why she's not severed. So if somebody is not severed and lives within Lumen, you're living in the cult forever. And we know how that turns out. It's never good. And like in terms of your development. And I'm worried for her. I kind of don't know that we'll ever see her again. Like maybe we will, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's another situation where she just like shows up towards the end of the show in some different context. Or whatever, but I have no idea.
Once they got through Cobell's backstory episode, you realize that that's just to show an analog to what she went through in her childhood.
Yeah. That episode put me to sleep, dude.
So I still liked it. I've never been bored by the show.
The Cobell backstory.
Yeah. Well, what put me to sleep was lack of sleep, but it didn't help.
What put me to sleep was all the ether huffing. I just kept thinking like, shit, that looks relaxing.
I love all the ways that Kier pops up. Like, I love the like 16-bit Kier. Like, great job, you completed the task.
Off a cliff.
And he like, this is so ridiculous. I love like the animatronic Kier at the end.
I love the Hall of Presidents Kier.
Yeah,
the stop motion.
Was it really?
No, the stop motion sequence where they introduce them back to
yeah.
They're like, and like it shows Irving like getting hot headed and mad and like it's so strange. I was like,
that was Keanu Reeves narrating that, right?
I immediately called it.
It was supposed to be he was the second choice. You know who the first choice was?
Who?
Ben Stiller wanted Barack Obama to do it.
Really?
Yeah. And he was like, no, thanks.
He would be like, I don't know.
The fuck is this?
Well, he does have some exclusive Apple deals, so they probably were just trying to rope him into that.
I love that moment where Milkshake gives Dylan the letter from Audi Dylan and just like turns and like books it out of the room for no apparent reason.
So much.
It's
He just
so
runs.
good. Like, dude's physical comedy is great.
Wait,
he's so good.
Did we ever get an answer as to why he did that?
No.
I just he had places to be, man.
I guess he's got all this like he's got to do this like whole routine with you got to go rehearse this back and forth with the robot Kier or whatever.
Yeah, I got to go rehearse with the marching band.
It was weird though. Like I thought that it was like a pre-recorded thing within the robot, but then he makes some like slight against Kier, and Kier's like, "Yeah, well, fuck you."
It like improvs with him.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, that was weird. You know.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
Which is another little tally in the line of like maybe the essence of Kier is still alive, a la the board.
It's stuff like that that makes me wonder if Milchick will turn eventually, because like he's clearly coming to a head with the powers that be at the company. There's the painting, the blackenized painting of
the microaggressions.
Kier. The microaggressions and just him being essentially targeted by Miss Wong for his performance reviews, like sabotage his performance review. And, and then like that stuff, it's like, all right, well, he's starting to not like it here. So I wonder where that will go.
Like the show's at its best when it's a metaphor for modern corporate America.
Yeah.
And microaggressions and whatever else. And like, we can't even bother to get your name on your computer. It still says Cobell. You don't matter enough, or like, and it's at its funniest when it's super dry and just like you put the paper clip on front to back, or whatever. And it's like, this is so nonsensical. I've never even thought about there being a front to and back of paper clips.
You use too many big words like, oh, I'm too smart to work here. Like,
see, that's the one I also didn't understand, because I just started saying, oh, maybe there's something about their childhoods that make them talk that way. But like Miss Cobell is not short-winded,
No.
Yeah, right.
It's just one of those suppressing individuality things. I think that's part of the work metaphor. But it's also like, well, what would a child complain about in her manager? It's like, he uses too many big words. I don't know.
I do want to talk about the beautiful episode that's Mark and Gemma, and it. I need to look. Let me look this up while we're waiting on Kellen, because that episode, like with their backstory and the blood drive that Kellen mentioned, it felt like it was shot on film.
Chikai Bardo.
Is that what it is?
I think it's that one. Yeah. They meet at the blood drive and everything.
Yeah.
Let's see. Directed by Jessica. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember thinking
it had such a different texture to it.
Yeah. Yes, 16 millimeter film.
So it was shot on 16 millimeter, and the rest of the show's digital?
Yeah, the idea was what will give you the most immediate natural feeling of nostalgia, what will evoke that warm emotion within people of memories. There's no better medium than that. So it was an obvious choice, but it's not a simple thing to deal with. But I think it's what made it easy to shoot memories without having to slap on an aesthetic.
Mm.
Are we talking about how the flashback episode is filmed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was so fuzzy.
So beautiful. I as soon as it stared, I was like, oh, this is gorgeous. I love this.
It felt like the visual equivalent of putting on an LP.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, I wish the whole show was this. I'm glad it's not, but I wish it was. I wish every show was this.
The black point was a slightly raised brown.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
Like Hoover just said, it's that nostalgic feeling, but it's also, I don't know. It's just so like there's the word I used a minute ago.
They shot it so differently, tactile.
Yeah, it is. That the word I used was texture. It had a very, very different texture to it. And it was so like physical and tactile that I was like, I love the look of this. I'm so glad that it's the only episode shot that way because it made it impactful. But I just wish everything was still shot on film. Like, sorry. It's just so nice.
There was one thing that happened in that episode that I feel like was for some sort of metaphor or stylistic decision, but ultimately I'm not really sure what that was about. It was when they started reversing the footage of Gemma and under the shower head, like the water started going up before it did a cross dissolve to something else.
Yeah.
I never really saw an answer for it.
Yeah, that was a pretty episode, man, and good performances. And it absolutely calls for a different director and a different filming style, like to depict life pre-Lumen as something like, positive and something worth longing for.
Yeah.
And warm and with more humanity. And
it was also the only time it wasn't winter.
Yeah, that's right.
You're right. So I'm sure this is something to be said for cinematography and also like hair and makeup and all that, but like it's also the only time in the show that Adam Scott looks like he doesn't want to kill himself. And like it's the first time that I've watched the show where I was like, oh, there's Ben Wyatt. And every other time I watch the show, I'm like, it's not even the same dude. Why does he look so bad? And then now it's like, oh, he doesn't look bad. They make him look bad.
Yeah.
My Becca, my girlfriend, she says that Adam Scott's performance of Mark Scout reminds her of Tig Notaro, like a male Tig Notaro, because
Yes.
like they have a similar bone structure, similar
Sure.
haircut, and like when Mark Scout is
judgmental eyes.
when he's depressed or whatever, his delivery is just really slowed and blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh yeah, somebody should just pitch up Mark Scout and see if it just sounds like Tig Notaro,
Tig
just
Notaro,
a little
that's
bit.
funny.
So
That's
I want to see Tig Notaro, Adam Scott, Mitt Romney, and Keith Richards all like in a room and just, you know, I want them to do like an Evolution of Man style, like,
It's like a cheekbone convention.
Yeah. Yeah. They all look like alternate versions. They should all play the Doctor in Doctor Who.
I love Adam Scott. I think he does so wonderful. Like he's just like, it's weird because like he doesn't normally play the lead.
Right.
But he's so good, like so compelling. And I don't know really the impetus behind casting him, but I love it and I think it's great.
So there was pushback from Apple or the powers that be about Stiller pushing for Adam Scott. And it was I don't know how much it was like a fight or something like that, but you're right. Like people with the purse strings were like, I don't know. And they just kind of had to be proven wrong or something like that. Or Ben Stiller had that amount of sway as producer. And is he a co-creator?
Ben Stiller? No,
I don't
he's
think
just
so.
he's just an executive producer.
Yeah.
And directed I think one episode a season.
More than that, I
or
believe.
more. Yeah.
One or more.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Well, that reminds me of the story when Vince Gilligan was trying to get Breaking Bad made, and the studios didn't want Cranston, and evidently, I think it was AMC who was like, no, it needs to be John Cusack. Like, just told him point blank, like that's your Walter White, and he was like, no, it's not.
6 episodes in season 1 and 5 in season 2.
Wow.
Did you guys ever watch The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Ben Stiller directed that.
Yeah. Adam Scott's in it.
Yeah.
Adam Scott's in it. And I was trying to see if director of photography or whatever was shared between it, or cinematographer was shared between it. I can't find it without just umming the whole time. So,
Yeah,
but like
I'll check it out.
the way that movie was shot, it just seemed like a first foray by Ben Stiller into something that was just more thoughtfully shot, and it just seemed like the departure from his comedy career that led him to something like this. And it's also a movie that like not many people talk about or have seen, and like I think you ever find a movie where you're like, everybody likes that movie, right? And then you look it up and people are like, that movie sucked and it bombed and it has like a 30 or something on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm like, yo, what?
Dr. Sleep.
That movie is like the best movie. If you ever have like if you ever get like the travel bug or something, and you can't satiate it by traveling because you're poor like me, I'll put on specific films that make me feel that sort of like wonder and adventure and like reminder that my life is bigger than the tiny house that I live in and the stressful job that I work. And I don't know, when I saw the first season of Severance and, Stiller's involvement and everything like that, it seemed really familiar to me. I don't know how to describe it other than like maybe watch it after having watched Severance now, Connor, and see what you think.
Yeah.
It's just a really uplifting and like fun movie. I think it was 2019 or
2013.
2013.
Well
Jesus.
before that, yeah.
Yep.
Because I remember when I started dating Sarah, we were talking about like good movies we had just seen recently. And she was like, I really love Walter Mitty. And I was like, I do too. And so that was a while back.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy who played Drummond is the helicopter pilot in that movie, Dustin, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
okay.
if he's not, they look basically the same.
They look the same. Okay.
Don't come at me.
Yes, that is him.
There you go.
I did it.
Yep. His name is Olafur Dari Olafsson.
Is he's from Greenland?
Icelandic.
Iceland. Okay.
There you go.
His character is in the part where he's in Greenland. That's a fun one. Man, I should watch that again.
I want to check it out now.
Kristen Wiig is great in that movie.
Yep.
Adam Scott plays basically the same character from Step Brothers if he had a really, really terrible fake beard, or it's real and I'm terrified of his beard.
Yeah, I think it's fake.
I'll be the judge of this.
If it's not,
Jesus.
Yeah, Connor's just seen it. Your life is now never the same.
Oh, that looks fake to me.
I think so too. It looks like one of those Woolly Willy toys or whatever.
The iron shavings.
Yeah.
This Reddit thread said Ben Stiller wanted Adam Scott to look like he had a Grecian formula beard. Adam Scott had just filmed another movie, so he couldn't grow his own beard quick enough. So it's kind of half him, half fake. He said if he knew it was going to take 4 hours every day to apply, he would have just grown his own beard. Yeah, it was a choice also, though, like because I think that they're trying to show, apparently, I haven't seen the film, but part of it was to accentuate what hyper-masculine douchebags him and those other people are.
Yeah.
That's all I've got really for Severance. I'm really looking forward to more of this show and to Walter Mitty now.
Can I just say how dumb I am that you said a minute ago that Ben Stiller was great in that movie, and I literally was like, who does Ben Stiller play? It's late, man. I literally was like, who does he play? Does he have a big part?
You were just you only know him as Walter. That's why
his life was too secret. I couldn't remember it.
It was too secret.
Alrighty, gentlemen.
Word up.
Yay.
I'm gonna hit stop.
Yep. Okay.
Please enjoy all podcast sequel.
It's a tromboner. Oh, she was brushing her teeth at all.